It's expensive to live in the White House. As many people don't know, I mean, much is not covered. You're paying for every food, every bit of food that you eat. You're not paying for housing and the staff in it, but everything, even travel. If you're not traveling with the president, if your kids are coming on a Bright Star, which is the first lady's plane, we had to pay for their travel to be on the plane. It is an expensive proposition, and you're running for 2 years and not earning an income. So all of that was in my mind. How would we manage this? So my fears were what came from the fact that I thought he could win. Because if I maybe way in the back of my mind, I was hoping that maybe he wouldn't. That this would be the last thing he would do. But I knew he had it in him to make this happen.
Barack
Good morning, Jen the Liberty Lion. Uh, I think I did a video on this a while back because it was actually put out by Michelle Obama a while back, but recently it's re-emerged, and it is Michelle Obama talking about how she was not expecting the extra expenses of living in the White House, and how she had to try to figure out how they were going to pay for everything, because the White House wasn't going to pay for travel for her children or food for her and her children. That she had to figure out how to pay for all that. Now, I don't want to get into her whining about it, or calling her a complainer or anything like that, because this is a problem that civil servants and military people deal with on a regular basis, and it's an issue in it. But this is how the government works. So my perspectives, I can only give you information based on my knowledge and my experience. So by no means do I claim to know everything, or that I can explain every status of every person who have these issues. I can't explain them all to you. I can only explain the things that I know. And so, of course, I've never been in the White House. I generally know how things work with the federal government, the United States. So I can tell you some of these things generally, and then I can tell you some things specifically on how it works. So if you are, and I use the mail as a way to just keep things simple. So I say he, and I use the male perspective, the male sex. just to go along with the laws of grammar. Okay, so in the laws of grammar, we generally speak of he, and we mean both he and she. So this is not to disclude women in the military. I was in the military. I'm a woman, born female. Wasn't born a woman, was born female. And so I by no means am I discluding women or women in the military. So I'm just trying to keep it simple, stupid, the KISS principle. So let's say you're a boy, a young man, you're 18, you just graduated high school and you want to join the military. So when you join the military, you join the military. If you have family, they don't join the military with you. You join the military. And it's the same if you run for office. If you run for office, you run for office. You're signing those papers. You're taking an oath. Your family is not. They don't join the military with you. Now, family is important, and the government recognizes that, and so they have base housing and stuff. So we'll get into that in a minute. I want to talk to you about how the pay system works for civil servants and military people, but I'm going to explain to you from the military perspective first. Okay, so you go to MEPS, the Military Enlisted Processing Service Center. You go to MEPS and you go through the physical and you sign the papers. You get designated which is your job. You go to boot camp, you graduate boot camp, you go to school, and sometimes you go to 2 different schools, and then you go out into, if you're in the Navy, the fleet, if you're in the Army, the field, and so you go out into the field, into the service to do your job. So once you get to a military post and you're stationed there for, let's say, 3 years, you're given, if you're single, a barracks room. Sometimes the person is married and sometimes they're single. So let's first go along with the single person. They're given a barracks room. That barracks room is not free. Somebody has to pay for it. Now, when I was in, we didn't get the money and then give the money to the barracks. What happens when I was in was you got the barracks room. You never saw the money, but the money was sent from, I guess, the seat of government or Department of Treasury to the military post where you were at, and then the military post would allot the money to the barracks room, the barracks. So all the money has a place to go, and all the money has to go to that designated spot. So the United States of America being all the states, they give money to the United States, and the United States has to say where all the money goes. They have to show their accounting. So let's say that this single person is living in the barracks. Usually it's 2 people to 1 room. There's, in some barracks, a toilet facility, shower, sink, all that, 1 per room. And sometimes you have to go to the end of the hall and there's community restroom, showers, and you have to carry all your stuff with you down to the restroom and so on and so forth, right? So if this person goes and they're living in the barracks and they say, well, I've either gotten married or I have a wife who's back home and I want her to come here and stay at the post with me. This is a process, okay? So nowadays, the government, the military does not own base housing. Contractors own base housing. The military pays a contractor to build housing on the military post, and those contractors run the housing according to policy, whatever the policy is, either for the post or the policy is for the entire United States, all the posts. And when I say United States, I'm not talking about me and you off a military post in a state doing our own thing. When I say the United States, I'm talking about the federal lands, because that's really what the United States is. It's a government over federal lands for federal purposes, to do federal works where the states don't interfere. So this man will go to base housing and he'll say, I have a wife and 3 children. What's the waiting list? And they'll say, well, the waiting list is 6 months or 3 months or 3 years or whatever. And if he's only stationed there for 3 years, then he's probably not going to bother getting on the waiting list and having his family come. He'll just stay in the barracks and his wife will stay wherever she's at. If the waiting list is 6 months, he'll say, okay, sign me up. And then in 6 months, my wife and children will, once I get the house, my wife and children will come here. So now we have a different money situation. And because now the person is going to be paying a contractor, the money doesn't go through the post and to the contractor. The money goes to the person, the man, and then he pays, it's taken out automatically out of his check. So that's called, I think it's called BAQ, BAQ, something like that. So the housing or barracks quarters. So that's the money, and it gets paid to either the barracks because he's at the barracks, or it gets paid to housing because he's living in housing. So he doesn't really get the money. It just goes. It might come to his check and then get automatically taken out. So it comes to him, to his name, and then gets automatically taken out, depending if he's living in the barracks or he's living in base housing. So when his wife moves in, his wife is living on the military post, and she has to obey the military, not the military laws. She has to obey the federal laws, and the children have to obey the federal laws. But they're not under military law. Okay, only the military are under military law. So federal laws apply on federal lands to all the federal people, to all the people on the federal lands. So if you, who've never been in the military, you want to go visit a military post, you go on the post, you have to obey the federal laws, but you don't have to obey the military laws because you're not in the military. So the wife and kids come along, they have to obey all the federal laws, all the base policies, and they can live in housing. So the man then, because he's not in the barracks where there's no kitchen, he has to go eat at the galley. If he's at the barracks, he has to eat at the galley. So he has a galley card and he has to pay for his galley food. So again, more money is given to him in his name and then taken out for his galley card so he can eat at the galley. It doesn't matter if he wants to eat at the galley or not. He has to pay for the galley card and he gets the food. So the money is taken out. So by the time this soldier gets his check, there's very little to it. You get your first set of uniforms free. Well, they say it's free. You get your first set of uniforms, your first set of shoes, but after that, you have to pay for everything. You have to pay for your socks, you have to pay for your t-shirts, you have to pay for your underwear, you have to pay if you need an insignia. The command that you're at usually gives you your first one. If you have a second set of uniforms, you have to buy them, and then you have to pay someone to sew them on if you don't know how to sew and put them on yourself. If you need another uniform because your first uniform, you wore it out or whatever, you have to pay for it. So a lot of things people have to pay for. When you're in the military and you get sent somewhere, okay, so this would be like Obama. Obama's in the military. When he was president, he was in the military. He had a military office. So some of that was paid for. As a civilian, you have to pay for your travel. Okay, so if you're a civilian working for the military, you have to pay for your travel and then get reimbursed later. As a military person, you're given orders and everything's paid for. Okay, your food is paid for, your travel, your flight, your hotel, the barracks, all that's paid for. Because you're ordered, you have no choice in it. You're ordered to go. So I'm not sure if the president's ever ordered to go anywhere because he's the commanding officer. He's the commander in chief. So I don't know if anybody can order him to go, but there may be things that he has to do. And so it would be considered, I think, orders. And so he wouldn't have to pay for that. Now, as in his civil position as executive officer of the United States of America, I'm not sure how that works for him. If he does travel, if he pays for it up front and then gets reimbursed later, I'm not sure. Now, if you're in the military and you have 4 dependents, like a wife and 3 children, they give you a little bit extra. You live in housing, you're given enough room, a big enough house to accommodate all these people because they have standards that they have to follow. You're given a little bit more money because now you have to pay for all these people. It's really a social system. Being in the military is a social system. You could maybe even call it communistic. But that's the contract you sign. That's what you do. When you join the military, you sign this contract and you agree to this. You work your way up. You get paid a little bit more. You're given more jobs, more duties, more responsibilities. You can't just go around talking about everything you want to talk about. So in a way that's sort of communistic. You have freedom of speech, but you have to keep secrets. So there are some things that you can't talk about because it's a secret. You sign an NDA and all this kind of stuff, which I think is unconstitutional. But there were even secret journals at the Continental Congress. There were secret journals, and the United States has secret journals because it's a military. Now, the United States of America, I don't believe they can have secret journals. They can only have secret journals when they are convened as the United States, the military, in a military Congress. They can have their secret journals. So the United States of America, the states would disassemble or convene, and then the military would come in because, as you know, I've said that the United States Congress is supposed to be a military Congress, and they're supposed to convene at least once a year. That's the only time in the Constitution that they're required to convene is once a year, at least once a year. They can convene more of that, especially in times of war. So I'm not sure about Obama's position as a civil person because he has 2 positions as president, military and civil. So when you're in the military, you don't have a civil position, you're just in the military. When you're a civilian working for the federal government, not the president, but just, a regular civilian who's working with the military as a civil servant under oath and getting paid by the United States, you have to pay for your travel. You have to pay for your travel because you can't be ordered because the military can't order civilians. So you agree to go. You agree to go, and it doesn't matter if you're an FBI agent, a CIA agent, if you're working with the Department of Defense as a civil servant working with the military, it doesn't matter. You pay for your travel, you pay for your hotel, you pay for your food, and then when you get back, you collect all your receipts, you write them all up on this form, you submit the form, and then you get the money back. Okay, so for civilians, it's hard sometimes. Civilians who work with the military, civil servants, it's hard sometimes to be able to pay all those costs up front, especially when you're in a high-ranking position such as Secret Service working to protect the president. It's difficult because you're staying in that really nice hotel rooms, you're eating at nicer restaurants, you have to pay for all these things. And you might look and say, well, they're getting paid all this money, they make a higher pay than everybody else, and that's true. And of course, they live at a higher standard. And so it's not really that they don't have the money, but they're trying to live at a higher standard, and so they don't have the money. So nobody wants to live like a poor person. But that's the way it works. So Michelle Obama, what she was saying, what I understood she was saying, was not so much a whiny complaint. You can look at it that way if you want, but that's basically the complaint of every single person in the military and working as a civil servant. Now, she had never been a federal employee or in the military. So what I understood she was saying was the same thing that a lot of people would say, and that's that I was not prepared for the expense. No way am I defending her. I don't care about politicians. I equally don't like any of them. I think they're all crooks, scammers, deceivers. I think they all commit fraud. Their policies, they pass them off as laws and they're not laws. And then they make money off of their offices. They're not supposed to do that. And so I equally dislike all politicians, well, except for maybe Ron Paul, Thomas Massey, Rand Paul. There's a few of them that I like, but I generally equally don't like all Republicans, all Libertarians, all Independents, and all Democrats. I just generally don't like all of them. But my point is that it's that way for everybody. And so she was just, I think she was just saying that she was not prepared to have to pay that for herself, that she thought she was going to go to the White House and then everything was going to be paid for. Her travel was going to be paid for, her food was going to be paid for, you know, and all this other stuff. I'm sure that she got a lot of things for free. So they didn't have to, I don't believe they had to pay to live in the White House, whereas our members of the military have to pay to live in base housing. They have to pay to live in the barracks. Now, how the money is moved around is another story. But she was saying, yeah, we got to live in the White House for free, but we had to pay for our food and our travel. And I just wasn't prepared for that. And that's the same thing I've heard FBI agents say. Okay. I just, you know, it's, you make money, but you have to pay up front. And that's hard when you don't have the money to pay up front. So if you travel, you can make a little money off of doing that traveling, but you have to pay for it up front and then get it back. And the only reason why you make that money is because you're having your food paid for. So when you eat out, you're paying more, but your food's getting paid for. So you had to eat anyway, so you're getting it back. And then it comes back as being a little bit more than you would have spent if you were staying home. Okay, so this video is going around, and I want to be fair, not to the Obamas. I want to be fair in that I want people to understand that it is a legitimate complaint, but it's the same complaint that all of our civil servants have and all of our military people have, that there's not a whole lot of benefit to being in the military. There's not a whole lot of benefit to being a civil servant. You have to pay a lot of things on your own, and you shouldn't expect the government to pay for them. And they do pay for them when they tell you you have to go, and they tell you have to go because you signed a contract to enlist into the military. And when you enlist into the military, you belong to the military. You're property of the military 24/7. You have no choice. They can send you wherever they want. And because they can send you wherever they want, you're ordered. And when you're ordered, it's paid for. It's if you're under a mandate, the mandate has to come with funding. Okay, so if the federal government says you got to go there, it has to come with money. Just like when the states tell the federal government you have to do this, it has to come with money. Okay, so everything in the Constitution are the things that the states told the federal government you have to do, and so that's a mandate, and so those things come with money. It has to be funded. You can't expect somebody to work for free. Nobody works for free. But that doesn't mean that we have to feed you. If you're a civil servant, you didn't get forced to do that. Obama wasn't forced to run for office, and he wasn't forced to bring his wife into the White House. He was elected as a person who is elected to, as far as I know, the only person in America who can hold both a civil and military position is the president. President of the United States, executive officer of the United States of America, and the commander-in-chief of the United States. Both have one office, and that's called the presidency. Civil, United States of America, over the states, and military, Commander-in-Chief of the United States, both civil and military. So I'm not really ever studied how he gets paid or what's paid for, or if he's ordered and who he's ordered by, and if he's ordered, who pays for it. But I know for a fact that when you join the military, your wife and kids don't get a free ride because they didn't join. When you're a civil servant, they didn't give me food, they didn't give me housing, they didn't give me free daycare. And all these people in Congress of the states, the United States of America, they're getting free rides because they go to the congressional building and they have free day, and they're charging it back to the taxpayers. They have more than the military members do. Military members have to pay to get their hair cut. These people in Congress, these civilians, are getting like military perks, what the military should be getting. They're getting all these perks, all this free stuff at taxpayer expense, free daycare, free food, free haircuts, and whatever else they've given themselves, along with all this increase in pay that they get. These are civilians taking money from the states to get free stuff, and I think that's wrong. But I wanted to make this video. It's been 23 minutes. I hope I didn't bore you too much, but you know, I'm not a Obama fan. I'm not a Trump fan. I'm not a fan of any politician. But I'm saying that what she's saying, Michelle Obama, and I'll insert the video, a copy of the video of her saying that if you really listen to her, she was just saying, the one I heard was, she was not prepared for that added expense. She thought everything was going to be paid for. Okay, that's the same problem a lot of people have when they work as a civil servant or a member of the military. Everything's not paid for. Your barracks room is not paid for. You get the money, but then you have to pay it back. Your housing is not paid for. You get the money, you have to pay it back. Your uniforms, you only get some uniforms for free. Your first set of uniforms for free. Everything after that, you have to pay for it. If you want shoe polish, you have to pay for it. If you need a haircut, you have to pay for it. If you have kids and they need to go to daycare, you have to pay for it. So these people in Congress get more benefit than the members of the military do. And Michelle Obama is not a civil servant, and she still got to live in the White House for free. So she got a lot. But again, yes, it's an expense that she wasn't prepared for. And she was saying that she didn't realize that that was an added expense, and she didn't know how they were going to pay for all that. Okay, so I think it's probably not as expensive as, because when you are working with the government, the cost of things are a lot less, and there's no taxes added to it. So it would be still less than she would be paying if she was probably cooking her own meals or doing her own commercial traveling. Okay, so just another video. There's a lot of veterans, or at least a few veterans and military people who watch this channel. I've seen a few comments from them here and there. So if you can add to this or correct me on some things, go ahead and do that. And do it in the comments. Give me a like, share, and subscribe. And I've got a few more videos that are going to be coming out soon. And I'll insert that video of Obama, Michelle Obama, and what she was saying. Okay? And I'll catch you later.